If you look at Bitcoin and you take a cursory look, and I've got a lot of books here on Bitcoin, you don't understand it. You probably think it's financial blather. You probably think it's a code on the internet that how could that be worth anything? It's not backed by anything. And if you read, there's a woman at Goldman Sachs that writes about it all the time. She's a Bitcoin denier. She hates Bitcoin and she says it's worth absolutely nothing and it's backed by absolutely nothing. And so therefore, it'll go to zero. It'll eventually trade to zero. And then there's guys like Cliff Asness. He wrote a parable. He said Bitcoin got to 250 and then exploded. And there's still some people that like it. It's trading at 10,000, and this is the year 2030. Why am I bringing that up? Because there's a healthy skepticism about Bitcoin in the marketplace, and people that don't really study Bitcoin, they have that feeling about Bitcoin. Now, maybe they're going to be right. I don't know. We'll have to see 10 years from now, 5 years from now. I'm been humbled by life, Alan, and I've been humbled by markets. So I'm not going to talk to you definitively about this. I'm just going to give my analysis and tell you that I put my money where my mouth is. And so what I would say is that doesn't really understand the nature of that asset. And so what that asset is a secure, decentralized, fully distributed, very transparent spreadsheet. It's a very transparent system to move value between people. And by the way, people have to know this, their bank is a spreadsheet. Okay, your money's on the spreadsheet in one account, my money's on the spreadsheet in the other account. If you're the car dealer, the money in my account goes down, the money in your account goes up. What are those things? They're just digits in the bank. We've decided that we're going to trust this instrument, this US dollar, it's a form of technology to transfer value between each other. And why do we do it? We have all these different reasons why we do it. Okay, but what if you could create a trustless system? What if you could create a system where you don't have to rely on the government, but there's a network, and so a result of which there's hundreds of thousands of people, so you don't have to trust any one person, and the system is truly transferable, unhackable, it is completely secure, and then it ticks off all the elements that we've used to have money in our society: immutability, scarcity, trust in the technology. And when you look at it from that perspective, okay, it has value. The network itself has value. And if you look at it from that perspective, is it any different from gold? Gold is a bar of gold. Yeah, it's metallic. Some people will argue it has some manufacturing value. It has value for jewelry. Is that 5 or 10% of the value of gold? No, gold is valuable because we all perceive it to be valuable. We trust that other people will perceive this to be valuable, and so that we'll be able to use this to have value between each other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes total sense.
And so when you do the homework, Stan Druckenmiller, Ray Dalio, Paul Tudor Jones, Michael Novogratz, Pete Grieger, Michael Saylor, you pick the person. Neil Ferguson, who wrote the legendary book, The Ascent of Money, is a historian about money and about what we use money for in our society. If you do the homework and you look at it, all of a sudden you're like, okay, that is money. Okay. And then will it be adopted by the society? As Satoshi said, will it catch on? You may want to buy some, it may catch on. And then you have this younger generation of people that understand the digital world, and then it starts to catch on. And now you're looking at adoption rates. And, so where are we? If it's Web 1, we're like in the year 2000. Imagine the growth between 2000 and 2025. And then let's be Michael Saylor be mad at me. Let's be the Bitcoin is gold theorist. Michael says it's digital property. Michael says it's an operating system. It's a new software for money and the cycles of money and the transactions of money. It's a cheaper, easier, and it's immutable. The government can't corrupt it by adding to it. And so therefore it becomes even more valuable. But let's just say that it's gold. Okay, let's say that it's a form of digital gold. And by the way, it's easier to store and it's easier to move around than gold, is it not?
Absolutely. I mean, you
Okay,
don't
and
need
so
to.
now all of a sudden it may be better than gold, but let's say it's just gold. Okay, and so as it's adapting, it's going to go through volatility curves. Amazon did that. Microsoft did that. Apple Computer did that. Pick the companies. And so this is now being adopted and married up against the people like me and Saylor and the guys that like it. There is a chant out there of people that don't like it. It could be Warren Buffett. It could be the woman that runs Goldman Sachs's asset management investment research. It could be a whole host of people, and they're going to chant against it. And so that creates this uncertainty. It creates the cycle. And if you look at it from that point of view, there's an adoption curve, and that adoption curve should come with high volatility. But if we're right, the volatility will be volatility upward. It won't be volatility. It won't trade to zero, but we'll see.
Yeah, no, we'll see. Well, I think one of the interesting things about this cycle more than anything, right, is Bitcoin's had a pretty, even though to those outside looking in would describe Bitcoin as volatile, it's had a pretty steady parabolic growth curve, right? We do know that in the 4-year cycles that Bitcoin tends to double or even triple in value. And we're about 15 years into this digital money experiment, so to say. Obviously, it doesn't have as long standing of a history as gold, but to all your points, right? It's scarce. It's infinitely divisible. It's immutable. It's decentralized. There's no single entity that can control it. Anybody can access the network. Money transfers are almost instantaneous and require very little capital to do so. So it's not only is it of a benefit to the unbanked and people who necessitate cross-border payments, but it's also extremely beneficial to banks who are moving large sum quantities of wealth. I think I read an article the other day where JP Morgan was literally trying to take advantage of the $20 gold arbitrage trade from London to New York. And I'm just sitting here thinking the price of flying a plane over, using the jet fuel, the personnel to load the plane up and move it all, where you could just have all that wealth in Bitcoin. Makes a lot of sense. And I think that's starting to catch up, right? What has traditionally been with Bitcoin a grassroots movement, a grassroots adoption curve, right? To use that comparison to the money growth curve, I think has completely gone out the door this instance, right? I remember, heck, not even 2-3 years ago, that both Larry Fink and I think Jamie Dimon still leans this way potentially, although he's opened up a little bit more. We're both very anti-Bitcoin. And in the last 2 years, right, we've had reversal on gap accounting, we had the reversal of SAB 121. Those brought online the Bitcoin ETFs. We've also seen, the failure of choke point 2.0 from the previous administration, the strides that Senator Elizabeth Warren was trying to take to stomp out our industry with the debanking of Bitcoin and crypto-focused hedge funds. And the new administration, the Trump administration.
How did that work out for Senator Elizabeth Warren? Did that work out well for her?
It did not work out well for her. I mean, she's still in office. In office. And I'd actually be curious to hear what your take is on that.
Well, I mean, I have a take that gets everybody upset. So let me just tell you my take. She was tight with Sam's parents. She was tight with Barbara Freed, and she was tight with Joe Bankman. And they were all law school professors. They knew each other a long time. And Sam is a brilliant young man. He's very flawed, obviously. And they met with her regularly. And they met with Gensler regularly. And then the kid obviously committed fraud, got himself in trouble. And Elizabeth Warren, in order to shield herself, went indiscriminately and wantonly hard at the Bitcoiners and hard at the cryptocurrency and the blockchain. And she was a very powerful person during the Biden administration. She had staff at Treasury. She had staff at the SEC. She had staff at the White House, and she had staff in the Federal Reserve. And so she went very hard. I mean, Biden signing Sob 121, he doesn't even know what it is. But her staff was there, and she's directing the staff from a financial services perspective. And she crushed the industry because she was trying to shield herself politically from the fallout of being that close to Sam. And she was starting this anti-crypto army, which, of course, who the hell wants that? Nobody. Okay. And moreover, there's no votes for that, Alan. And so, she single-handedly with Gensler took out the Democrats in the Senate and in the House. I mean, look, Trump was a beast, and he was running against Kamala Harris, and Trump won the election. There are many factors, but there was water that got added to Trump's bucket that tipped the election. Some of it was the inflation. Some of it was Joe Biden's age and his mental decline. Some of it was the abrupt transition into Kamala Harris. Some of it was the Bitcoiners. Some of it was Silicon Valley. It had enough of the bureaucracy and the regulation. They put up the white flag and they started migrating over to Trump. I'm not just saying it was just the Bitcoiners, but the Bitcoiners did put $250 million into the 24 campaign, 40 million of which went into the race in Ohio and knocked Sherrod Brown on his ass, knocked him right out of the Senate. 18-year veteran of the Senate, bye-bye. Okay, you hate Bitcoin, we're going to get you out of the Senate. So we have a pro-Bitcoin House and Senate. McCormick won that race in Pennsylvania. He's a good, close personal friend of mine. I'm a donor of his, and David's a great guy. And he was able to knock out a veteran, Casey, another guy that was in the Senate a long period of time, knocked him on his ass. And so yes, the votes matter and the politics matter. And Trump has put in some very good people. Whatever my issues are with Donald Trump, he has put in some very good people to help run the process. And I think Sachs, by the way, has done a very smart thing. I don't know if David Bailey would agree with me on this. I mean, I do love David Bailey. But I think what Sachs has said in that executive order that Trump signed was we're going to evaluate this over 6 months. And I think Sachs has told people quietly he would like to get some buy-in from the Democrats on a strategic Bitcoin reserve because he doesn't want it to be it's in when Trump is in office. If a Democrat gets in office, it's out, it's in, it's out. He wants it to be like gold. Bipartisan commitment to gold. I just want to remind everybody there are 27 different strategic reserves. There are rare earth minerals, there's lithium, there's petroleum. We have a strategic petroleum reserve. And so there's a lot of different types of reserves. And you don't hear Democrats get to the podium and say, I hate the lithium reserve. We got to sell the lithium reserve the minute that Trump leaves office. So I think that this is still a very political hot potato. And I think that Sachs is doing a very good job of like, okay, we got it. Let's see if we can join forces, get a bipartisan commitment to this.
Absolutely. Well, I think one of the most interesting things of just the last 6 months is we had a mandate from the American people, essentially, sweeping, both the executive, the House, and the Senate, the straight Republican flush of representatives, in the hope, and I'm speaking collectively on behalf of the entire U.S. population here, but just from reading the news, right, the assumption was that the previous administration failed economically. Inflation was at all-time highs. We are losing dollar dominance in the global markets, right? We have the rise of the BRICS Pact, Brazil, Russia, India, South Africa, who are looking to formulate a separate basket of goods outside of the dollar and looking to hard assets like gold and even potentially Bitcoin for some.